Fellas, today we're going to be building a stacked MMA boxing card. Now, this is a bit of a weird video. I'm usually used to building card builders to do with the UFC, but we're going to be building like an MMA one now. So it's going to be MMA fighters or UFC fighters who have transitioned to boxing or have just retired from the UFC or retired from MMA. So yeah, it's going to be a couple of fights on here, not an entire card, but I've done a lot of, relevant fights that I think should happen. This card is stacked. Like, you'll see why soon. This card is stacked and it will sell pay-per-views, it will get media attention, and would probably be, the most stacked kind of card we've had that's similar to this is Game Bread 4. But we're going to be taking it to another level, and we're going to get in there with the first fight. Well, not the first fight. We'll go from the main event to the first couple of fights, but the main event of the card, the headliner, Chael Sonnen versus Tito Ortiz. Now, some of you are going to be looking at this thinking, first of all, Chael Sonnen's old, he can't box, how is this fair? Well, first of all, Chael Sonnen has stated that he will only ever get back in the boxing ring if he's going to face Tito Ortiz. And I don't know if you remember, but Chael Sonnen said on his dad's deathbed, on his father's deathbed, that he will definitely beat Tito Ortiz one day. And this is another opportunity for Chael Sonnen to beat Tito Ortiz. And they're both old, and Tito Ortiz can't box either. He fought in 2021 against Anderson Silva and got knocked out in, pretty quickly. He looked terrible, probably one of the worst transition boxers of all time. Plus that he just filled with CTE. So it's redemption for Chael. I think this could sell so many pay-per-views. This will get the media attention. Chael Sonnen, first of all, the press conference may as well be pay-per-view itself, but this would be stacked. Tito's trash at boxing. It's another chance for Chael Sonnen, and it'll just be good to see them both go at it one final time in their career. Been retired for a while now, haven't fought in, nearly a decade, but I'd love to see him back in the boxing ring. Redemption for both of them. Redemption for Chael because obviously he's lost to Tito, and Tito got slept by Anderson Silva. So this is a headliner for like an MMA boxing card, would be massive. And listen, I'd love to see this pay-per-view. Get it on, I don't know, Game Bread 4, whatever promotion there is. Even like a Misfits boxing. I just want to see an MMA card, and I think this is an amazing headliner. So that's the headliner of the card. We'll go to the co-main event, and for me, the co-main event's also a big fight as well, but it's a little bit different. Instead of it being two legends, it's two fighters who are a little bit closer to their prime. Tyron Woodley versus MVP. Now, obviously, Tyron Woodley left the UFC a while ago. He was on a bit of a losing streak, and it's redemption again. It's a big chance of redemption for Tyron Woodley. Obviously, he fought Jake Paul, got lost by decision, and then got slept in the rematch. And ever since then, that's kind of all he's been known for. His entire career, he's just been known as the guy who went on a downfall in the UFC and then got slept by Jake Paul. I think if we give him somebody like MVP, this could be a massive fight. Michael Venom Page, he's a free agent. He was amazing, but he was in Bellator. He didn't go on this massive downfall, but MVP is a free agent. He boxed in BKFC against Mike Perry. He lost the fight, but listen, first of all, that was against Mike Perry, and in my opinion, Mike Perry's definitely got better hands than Tyron Woodley. And second of all, it's not bare-knuckle boxing. You don't have to rely on toughness as much. It's just, pure boxing. And it's the first time we get to see MVP. Well, the second time we get to see MVP against a legitimate UFC, champion, a UFC fighter. And then the first time against the UFC champion. So I'd love to see MVP versus Woodley. And Woodley wants to box. He's been chirping up since 2021, saying that he wants to box again. And this is the opportunity for him to box on the co-main event of a huge card like this. It's big for both. Again, it's redemption for both of them as well, because MVP wants to win in boxing. Tyron Woodley just wants to box someone. He doesn't matter who he doesn't care who it is. He just wants to box. They'll do it at the 170 weight class. And for me, that's a massive co-main event. We get to see Woodley in there, we get to see MVP in there. Both free agents, no longer in the UFC, and I think it could be a competitive fight. Obviously, MVP's probably the better, well, not probably, he is the better striker than Tyron Woodley, but then you've also got to realise that Tyron Woodley, he was fighting at a way higher level than MVP was, because MVP was fighting in Bellator, whereas Tyron was fighting in the UFC. So, as a co-main event, this is absolutely massive, and I just love to see this fight. I just love to see this fight as a co-main event. And then we got the featured fight, and this featured fight could arguably be the co-main event itself, because it's just massive. Mike Perry versus Darren Till. Now, this matchup has kind of been, it's been in the making for a while. I've been wanting to see this matchup for a while. They've been chirping at each other for ages. We never got to see him fight in the octagon. But let's put him on a boxing card. Darren Till has literally been posting pictures on his Instagram about him versus Mike Perry on Misfits Boxing or a boxing card. Darren Till definitely wants it. He needs to do something with his career. He's 30 years old. He's just been cut from the UFC. He went on a massive downfall, and he's in a bit of a weird spot right now. This is a perfect chance for him to get his name back in the headlines by beating Mike Perry. Now, before you all say that Mike Perry's going to absolutely school him because of the bare knuckle boxing, again, it's not the same as bare knuckle boxing. Obviously, we know that Darren Till doesn't have any heart, but you know, he doesn't have to rely on his heart as much in this because it's just a boxing fight. And Darren Till, I mean, if you look at the end of his career, he only really tended to fail because of striking. I mean, the only real strikers that he lost to were people like Whitaker, so there's no grappling that Darren Till has to worry about, just pure kickbox or boxing, even not even kickboxing, just boxing. They want to fight each other. Mike Perry's ready to fight. I mean, he's literally asking to fight Logan Paul. They're both ready to fight. I don't know why this fight hasn't been made. Gamebred Boxing would make cash if they made this fight, but winnable for both of them. I want to see this fight. Again, winnable for Mike Perry because he went on a streak in bare knuckle boxing, and you know, bare knuckle boxing is, you have to rely more on toughness, but Darren Till, he hasn't been in the boxing ring for ages. Mike Perry's more of a fresh boxer, and I feel like Mike Perry's kind of found his thing. Maybe this should be a co-main event because of Mike Perry. You know, he beat Michael Venom Page, so it only makes sense. But I'd love to see this fight, and if whoever wins this can go on to do bigger things in the boxing ring. Maybe even Darren Till wants to make another MMA run. I don't know what Darren Till's going to do in his career if it's not something like this. Like, he's been teasing the fact that he wants to box. He's been posting posters of Mike Perry saying he wants to box him. What else is there for Darren Till to do in his career? Like, literally, what else can Darren Till do? Is he just going to sit out and waste his 30s until he's had a career full of nothing? So, I think it's a huge opportunity for both. But either way, the next fight, I'm going Anthony Pettis versus Jeremy Stephens. Now, the only issue with this fight is that I'm not sure they'd be in the same weight class because obviously Anthony Pettis, he just fought Roy Jones. Anthony Pettis is a welterweight and Jeremy Stephens is a featherweight. So weight classes, they kind of vary here, but I still feel like they could meet in the middle. I think Anthony Pettis could make lightweight. Jeremy Stephens could easily make lightweight. And it just makes sense. I mean, this would be a great fight. This would be an absolute war. I mean, Stephens just fought Jose Aldo on Gamebred. I think it was Gamebred 4, and it was a draw. Which, to go toe-to-toe with Jose Aldo in his first fight after leaving the UFC, in a boxing match, just a pure boxing match, and to go and get a draw against Jose Aldo, that's pretty impressive. And Anthony Pettis just beat Roy Jones Jr. Say what you want, it might have been an old version of Roy Jones Jr., where he was just old, wasn't the same, but he still beat him. Like, say what you want, but he still beat him. So they both recently fought on Gamebred 4. Let's get them to fight each other. It makes sense. You know, Anthony Pettis is going to be boxing a more of a fresh guy. It's a step up from Jose Aldo for Jeremy Stephens. Even though he didn't beat Aldo, it was a draw. But I feel like this would be an absolute war. It could go either way. Jeremy Stephens, he's only really known now for being the guy that got, mauled by Conor McGregor at the press conference. So it's a chance for him to make his name for himself on a huge card like this. Anthony Pettis again. I'm sure Anthony Pettis would be willing to do it on another promotion as well, because I don't know why Anthony Pettis would allow himself to main event on a promotion outside of Anthony Pettis FC. I don't know why he did that. He's a terrible businessman. Like, who names their own promotion Anthony Pettis FC and then goes and headlines on a different event? Doesn't make any sense. But yeah, this fight would be a war. I'd love to see it, and it's a decent featured fight. And then another featured fight, Vitor Belfort versus Hasim Rakman Jr. Now, this fight was actually scheduled on one of the Misfits boxing cards back in like October of last year, and they were going to fight each other. And back then, a lot of people were saying this is unfair. We're feeding a professional boxer to Vitor Belfort, who's old. Let's clear a few things up here. First of all, Vitor Belfort, he's probably juiced to the gills again. I mean, he's got a really good boxing streak so far. He's been, sleeping people. He's been beating people left, right, centre. He won on Gamebred 4. So he's going to be on TRT and he can actually box. He's been doing well. And we look at Hasim Rakman Jr. and he's been doing terrible in his last few fights. I know he fought Greg Hardy and he was like 100 pounds heavier, but he lost to Greg Hardy. And then I think he had another fight after that on a different promotion. I don't know who it was against, but he fought on a different promotion and he lost that as well. So since this fight was failed, Vitor Belfort's only gone up and Hasim Rakman Jr.'s only gone down. They were scheduled to fight before. I still want to see this fight, and I actually think Vitor Belfort could win. I mean, TRT Vitor versus a guy that's on a bit of a losing streak in the boxing. I mean, Hasim Rakman Jr. was scheduled to fight Jake Paul. I mean, we've gone from Jake Paul to Vitor Belfort. So, and I'd love to see this fight. Makes sense. They were scheduled to fight already. Honestly, I might even pick Vitor to win this fight because Vitor's a dangerous guy, man. Fighting TRT Vitor, you don't want to do that. Yeah, since they were last scheduled, the differences has kind of been You know, it's gone up. The differences have gone up because Vitor Belfort keeps winning and Hasim Rakman keeps losing. But for me, I think there's been a banger fight on the card. And then the final fight on the card, well, not the final fight, I guess it's the first fight because I'm going in reverse order. But another fight on the card, Kimbo Slice versus Gabriel Silva. Now, I couldn't find a picture of Kimbo Slice Jr. to put on here, and I couldn't find a proper picture of Gabriel Silva, so I've just gone with their fathers. This fight would be sick. They've both got, obviously, historic fathers in the MMA world. Gabriel Silva's obviously got Anderson Silva as his dad, and Kimbo Slice Jr.'s got Kimbo Slice, so they've got something in common there. And Gabriel Silva is just beating Ben the Bane Davis, who's a play-by-play commentator. And you look at his boxing record before that, and he was struggling to beat people with absolutely terrible records. Gabriel Silva, Anderson Silva's son, he hasn't really gotten a, he hasn't really challenged himself yet. Kimbo Slice Jr., he can box. I mean, he did get finished. He has been finished in one of his boxing fights, but he can still scrap. And it would be the biggest step up so far for Gabriel Silva. The only thing that would make this unfair is the fact that Gabriel Silva would have a massive reach advantage. I don't know exactly what it is, but it would have a massive reach advantage over Kimbo Slice Jr. But it's winnable for both. Gabriel Silva, very, very slick boxer, but he needs to get a step up in the opponents. Kimbo Slice Jr., he's just been finished, and it's another chance for him to beat a guy that's not really beating anyone good. Both around similar weight classes as well. I'd love to see this fight on a stacked card like this. So yeah, that's the first fight of the card. I know I've gone in reverse order, but that's my stacked MMA boxing card. Please let me know your thoughts on this card, or if you would add any fights of your own. But yeah, I think this is pretty good for a stacked pay-per-view. And yeah, thanks for watching.